The sky was always gray now. No sun, no stars, just thick clouds that never moved. After the apocalypse, everything had changed. Cities were ruins, oceans had dried, and the strong ate the weak. But in the middle of this broken world, there was one strange sight, a small food stall standing alone. Glowing with soft yellow lights, the man who ran it was human. He had no name painted on the stall, no sign, no prices, no guards, just one bench, a few cooking pots, and a smile that never faded. Every morning, like clockwork, he cleaned the dusty stall, lit the stove, and started cooking. Nobody knew where he got his ingredients. No farms, no animals, no supply ships, but the food smelled warm and fresh, like home. And it made people stop and stare at those who had forgotten what real food was. At first, only the desperate came. A thin alien girl with blue skin and broken armor was the first. She stood quietly, watching the human cook. He looked at her and gently placed a hot bowl in front of her. She hesitated, then took a bite, and something changed in her eyes. She fell to her knees and cried, "I haven't tasted anything this real in years," she whispered. The human didn't say much, just nodded. "You're safe here," he said. "But there is one rule." She wiped her tears and asked, "What rule?" "Don't eat in hate," he replied. "Only if you are ready to remember who you were." More aliens arrived the next day. Some were tall, some had wings, some looked more beast than person. All were hungry. The stall became known across the wastelands, a place where even enemies sat side by side, sharing food without war. But no one understood how the food was made. It healed wounds, gave energy, and sometimes made people laugh or cry. One alien girl with sharp teeth and fire-colored hair whispered to another, "This food... It does something to your heart." The others nodded. They came with weapons at first, thinking the stall was a trick or trap. But the human never fought back. He only served meals and asked for nothing. Some aliens offered gold, others offered weapons or technology, a few even offered themselves. But the human refused every gift. He only repeated, "Eat with peace in your heart, or not at all." A group of merchant raiders once tried to steal his pots. They laughed and pointed their guns, but before they could fire, the first blue-skinned girl stepped forward. She blocked them with her body and growled, "No one touches the cook." More girls stood with her. Forming a wall, the raiders backed away, confused and afraid. "What's so special about this man?" one asked. The blue-skinned girl just smiled. "He fed my soul one night." A small alien girl crept close while he was cleaning up. Her stomach growled loudly, and she looked too weak to walk. He picked her up, gently sat her on the bench, and gave her a warm roll. She chewed slowly, tears falling from her strange red eyes. "I thought kindness was dead," she whispered. The man said nothing, only placed a soft blanket around her shoulders. As days passed, the food stall became a mystery. Aliens traveled long distances just to taste his meals. Some said it was magic. Others said it was ancient human science, but none could explain why the food made them feel alive again. The human never left the stall. He never slept in front of others, never showed anger. He was calm, gentle, and always cooking. One alien girl joked, "Maybe he's not human. Maybe he's a god of food." The others laughed. But deep down, no one really knew the truth. Then something strange happened. A tall alien girl with silver eyes dropped her spoon mid-meal. She looked up with wide eyes and gasped, "I remember. I remember my sister's face," she said, "but I lost her in the war years ago." The human paused, then said softly, "The food brings back what matters most." That night, the crowd was quiet. The alien girls sat closer to the stall, not just for food, but for warmth. They no longer looked like warriors or survivors. They looked like daughters, sisters, and friends. The stall had no walls, no roof, but it felt like the safest place on earth. The man stirred his pot one last time and looked around. So many eyes watching him, not with fear, but with hope. He smiled gently and said, "Tomorrow, there will be more." And just before the night swallowed the stall, one alien girl whispered in the dark, "This is not just food," she said. "It's something holy." It started quietly, the way storms often do. First, a whisper through the wrecked cities, then voices on broken radios. "Have you heard of the human who feeds for free?" Alien girls who once hunted in packs, who once ruled sectors with claws and fire, were now walking dusty paths for days just to reach the small stall in the middle of nowhere. They came with shaking hands and hollow eyes. Some were proud, still, wearing medals from long-dead empires. Others were poor, dressed in rags or carrying crying babies. But all of them came for one thing: his food. Not just for hunger, but for something deeper, something they couldn't name. The human stood behind his stall, as always, quiet, calm, and alone. He stirred his stew and flipped strange glowing bread with hands that never shook. His face was always gentle, never cold, even when surrounded by girls who had the power to burn down mountains. One day, a tall alien woman arrived with black scales across her arms. She tossed a sack of rare coins at his feet and said, "I want everything you've got." The human looked at the coins, then back at her face. He didn't even bend to pick them up. "You may sit," he said softly, "and I'll feed you if you're ready." She frowned, confused. "I said I'm paying," she snapped. The man only smiled. "No one pays here," he said, "and I don't take orders." She sat, though, like all the others. By the time she tasted her third spoonful, her eyes began to water. "This reminds me of my brother's cooking," she whispered. The human didn't answer. He simply placed a napkin near her shaking fingers. More alien girls came after that. And they didn't come empty-handed. One brought a laser weapon crafted by her ancestors. Another brought a necklace made of glowing stones. A third stepped forward and, without shame, said, "I will stay with you, serve you, clean for you, anything you want." The human nodded politely. "But I don't need servants," he said. "Just peace at this table." They offered so much: ships, gold, and even their bodies. Some weren't even shy about it. They leaned close, whispered promises in his ear, placed hands on his shoulder. But the man always stepped back. Gently, "I feed all," he said. "Not for trade, not for love." Still, the hunger in their eyes grew stronger. Not just hunger for food, but for him. He was different. And in a world that had nothing left, something different was rare. They started fighting over seats at the table, pushing each other, shouting. Two sisters nearly broke into a duel over the last bowl, until the human stood and raised one hand. "Leave if you fight," he said, his voice still calm but firm. "This stall only serves those who sit in peace." They froze, ashamed, and slowly stepped back. One of the girls, her skin glowing faint purple, looked at him and asked, "Why do you do this? You could rule us with this food." The man turned back to his pots and said, "I'm not here to rule anyone." That night, an alien girl with white eyes leaned close to her friend and whispered, "He doesn't see us the way others do." Her friend nodded. "He feeds us like we're people, not beasts." But not everyone came with quiet hearts. One group arrived dressed in war gear, their leader wearing armor made of stolen bones. They didn't ask for food, they demanded it. "You will serve us." The leader growled, "Or we burn this place down." The other girls stood up, glowing, weapons pulled. But before a fight could break out, the human stepped in front of the stall. "You want to eat?" he asked. "Then sit and be hungry for more than just meat." The armored one laughed, raised her gun, but suddenly, One of her own soldiers stepped forward and said, "Wait, I've tasted it before." She lowered her gun slowly and said, "Fine, feed me, but if this is a trick, you die." He served her without fear. One simple bowl, one spoon, and by the third bite, her hands dropped the gun. "I remember," she said, voice breaking, "my child, my little girl." She had hair like fire. She began to weep, and no one mocked her. They all saw it now what his food truly did. It fed the body, yes, but it awakened the spirit. The food touched memories long buried, feelings they thought were lost in war. And time, one girl came forward the next day, tears already in her eyes. She didn't ask for food. She just placed a single broken locket on the counter. "This was my mother's," she said. "I don't want anything. I just wanted you to see it." The human reached over, gently pushed it back to her, and smiled. "You've already remembered her," he said. "That's enough." The wind blew gently through the ruined world that night. And though the skies were still dark, the small lights from the food stall glowed like stars. The girls sat in silence, full in more ways than one. And though none of them said it out loud, they all knew this was no ordinary food. This was a gift. The fire in the pot crackled softly as the humans stirred the stew again. The scent drifted far across the ruined plains, carried on the dry wind. A long line had formed already. Girls of different alien races standing quietly. They weren't just hungry anymore. They were curious, almost afraid. Every day, the same scene repeated. The food looked simple: soup, bread, sometimes a roasted root or spiced broth, but the moment it touched their tongues, something changed. They felt things they hadn't felt in years. One young alien girl with mossy green hair sat alone by the bench. She had sharp teeth, but soft eyes. She took one bite of the warm bread, then froze. Her fingers trembled. Her breath caught in her throat. "I see her," she whispered, voice cracking. "My sister." Her face, I thought it was gone. She covered her face and sobbed, not caring who watched. The others said nothing, just looked down at their bowls. They understood. This wasn't just food. It was unlocking something buried deep inside them. They began to notice strange effects. Some remembered songs from childhood. Others remembered names they had long forgotten. One girl, after finishing her stew, dropped her spoon and looked at the sky. "I remember what sunlight felt like," she said in awe. Before the bombs, a quiet fear began to spread, not of the man or the food, but of their own pasts. Some memories were beautiful, others were full of blood and pain. The food brought back everything, not just the good. A group of older alien women approached the man one evening. Their leader had gray skin and 3 glowing eyes. "You must be doing something to us," she said. "This food, what's in it?" The man looked up calmly. "Only what's needed," he answered. "Memories live inside us. They just need a door." "But why now?" another woman asked, voice shaking. "Why do we remember things we wanted to forget?" The man stirred his pot slowly. "Because forgetting made you cold," he said. "But remembering will make you human again." They didn't understand fully, but they kept eating. Even those who feared the memories returned, because deep inside, they missed who they used to be. They missed feeling real. One girl stood out that day. She was different, taller than the rest, with wings folded behind her back. She had refused the food before, always watching from a distance, but something changed. She stepped forward slowly, her eyes locked on the human. He served her a bowl without a word. She took it and sat at the edge of the circle, away from the others. She dipped the spoon and tasted it. Her eyes widened, her wings twitched. She dropped the bowl and fell to her knees. "They made me do it," she cried. "They told me to burn the nursery. ... I didn't want to. I didn't." Her body shook as the memories crashed over her like waves. The girls nearby didn't laugh or judge. They simply sat in silence. letting her speak, letting her heal. Later, as night came, she approached the man again. Her face was streaked with dried tears, but her eyes looked brighter. "You knew this would happen," she said. "I had to." He answered, "The truth doesn't stay buried forever. But who are you really?" She asked, voice barely above a whisper. He smiled gently. "Just someone who remembers what home felt like." The girls didn't sleep much anymore. They stayed near the stall even after their meals. Some told stories under the stars. Some sang in voices forgotten by time. One girl painted with ashes, drawing symbols from her lost planet. They began to form something strange, a family made of strangers. They shared food, yes, but now they shared memories. They weren't just hungry for meat and spice. They were starving for the lives they had lost. A small alien girl with metal fingers asked the man that night, "Why don't you ever eat with us?" The man looked at the pot, then at the stars. "I ate all my memories a long time ago." He said, "Now I cook so others don't have to." The girl didn't know what to say. She walked away slowly, holding her bowl tighter than before. As morning broke across the dusty lands, more travelers approached, not to steal or fight, but to sit and taste the truth. Even hardened war generals came in secret. Wearing cloaks, each one left changed, quieter, eyes softer, and somewhere in the crowd, a voice whispered, "This isn't a food stall." Another replied, "It's a temple." The smoke trail in the sky was too straight to be natural. The girls sitting near the food stall looked up in silence. Their sharp eyes followed the falling object until it vanished behind a hill. A soft tremble shook the ground seconds later, like distant thunder. The human didn't look up. He kept stirring the pot, slowly, like nothing had happened. But the girls knew better. They had seen signs like this before. It meant ships, soldiers, trouble. Later that evening, a group of alien warriors appeared. They wore matching armor, dark red, with silver lines. Their boots were clean, their weapons polished. These weren't wanderers or hungry girls. These were warlords, and they didn't come to eat. The girls around the stall stood, quickly, tense. One by one, they blocked the bench and cooking pots. The blue-skinned girl with broken armor stood in front, her eyes glowing faintly. "This place is not for you," she warned. The leader stepped forward, his face cold and proud. "We've heard of this stall," he said, "and we're here to take it." The human finally turned around, his face calm. But his hands didn't stop working. He ladled soup into a bowl and placed it on the counter. "You're welcome to eat," he said. "But you won't take anything," the warlord laughed. "Do you know who I am?" He asked. "No," the human replied, "but I know what hunger looks like, and you don't have it." The soldiers raised their weapons, aiming at the crowd of girls. One girl with horns stepped forward, arms spread wide. "If you want him," she said, "you'll have to go through us." Another girl followed, then another, and another. They didn't carry big guns or wear fancy armor, but they had strength in their eyes and something stronger in their hearts. The warlord signaled, and one of his men fired a warning shot. The energy beam hit the dirt near the human's feet, but he didn't move. He picked up the spilled bowl, refilled it, and handed it again to the bench. "You fired near food," he said. "That's your first mistake." Without a word, the silver-eyed girl leaped forward, knocking down two soldiers. Others followed, not with weapons, but with speed, claws, and silent fury. The food stall became a wall of bodies, girls, protecting the one man who had given them something more than food. The battle wasn't long. The warlords had power, but no purpose. The girls had something deeper. They fought not for land or coins, but for memories, warmth, and a place that felt like home. One soldier broke through the line and aimed a rifle at the human's head. But before he could fire, the moss-haired girl slammed into him. The shot rang out and hit her shoulder. She collapsed with a cry, soup flying from her bowl as she fell. The human rushed to her side, ignoring the panic around him. She smiled weakly and said, "Still warm," before losing consciousness. The others roared in anger. And the attackers were finally pushed back. The warlord was dragged by his own. Defeated soldiers, bleeding and humiliated. Before leaving, he looked back and shouted, "You think this is the end? You're just a cook in a broken world." The human stood tall and replied, "Maybe, but I feed what you can't conquer." Night fell slowly that day, and the fire at the stall burned low. The injured girl was laid gently beside the bench. Others sat close, their eyes tired but proud. The human tore a clean cloth and began to wrap her wound. "I don't want her to die," one girl whispered. "She won't," the man replied. "She's full of memory now." They sat in silence for a long time, the sound of wind whistling through empty ruins. No one touched their bowls, not yet. The human finally poured broth into a small cup and raised it. "This one," he said, "is for those who protect more than themselves." They all raised their cups too, some with tears, others with clenched jaws. Something had changed that day. The food stall wasn't just a miracle or secret, it had become sacred. The human looked around at the circle of strange, broken, glowing souls. He didn't see soldiers or aliens anymore. He saw a new kind of people, formed not by blood or race, but by shared hunger, shared healing, and now, shared battle. He knew more would come, more enemies, more questions, but tonight the food stall still stood. And in a world full of death, that meant everything. The pot didn't boil that morning. The fire beneath it remained cold, untouched. For the first time since anyone could remember, the human didn't cook. He sat still, hands folded, eyes fixed on something far away. The girls gathered slowly. Confused and silent, they were used to waking up to the smell of spices and broth, to the sound of wooden spoons stirring deep pots. But now there was only silence, and it made them uneasy. The green-haired girl with mossy skin stepped forward and whispered, "Is the food gone?" The human looked at her, his face calm but tired. "There's food," he said, "but first, it's time you all knew what you've been eating." The girls looked at one another, unsure if they were ready. He stood up, moved to the side of the stall, and opened a hidden hatch beneath the bench. It creaked as it opened, and the air around them changed. A soft blue glow came from the space below, and the moment it touched their skin, they felt something strange in their chests. One by one, they stepped forward and looked inside. It wasn't food, not in the way they expected. There were no crates, no sacks of vegetables or frozen meat. There were glass jars, hundreds of them, maybe more. Each jar glowed faintly, like it held a firefly. Some pulsed slowly, others shimmered. "Like dreams, this," the human said, "is where your meals come from." The girls stared in silence. One brave girl with silver eyes pointed at a jar and asked, "What's inside it?" The human picked it up gently and held it to the light. "In this one," he said, "is the memory of my mother's laughter." They blinked in confusion, not understanding. "The food you've eaten," he continued, "was mixed with pieces of me, my memories, my pain, my love, my childhood. I grind them, boil them, blend them into every bite." The white-tied girl stepped back, her hand over her mouth. "You've been feeding us your soul," she whispered. The human nodded slowly. "Yes, because it's the only thing this world still needs," he explained further. After the collapse of Earth, machines once used for war were repurposed. One old device could store emotions and memories inside crystal threads. He had found the machine, broken and buried, and fixed it using his bare hands. Then he had spent years feeding it his life. Memory by memory, each jar was a story. The warmth of a campfire, the pain of losing a friend, the smile of a stranger. He had stored them all, cooked them, and served them to those who had forgotten what feeling meant. Some girls began to cry, others knelt in silence. They had tasted his life, not knowing the cost. "You should have told us," one girl said. "If I had," he replied, "you wouldn't have come back." They wanted to help him now, to give something in return. One girl offered her own memories. "I remember my first dance," she said. "It was real and full of light." He looked at her, surprised. "You're willing to give that up?" "No," she answered. "I want to share it, not lose it." That was when everything changed. The food stall, once fed by one soul, began to glow with many. Girls who had only come to take were now offering pieces of themselves, each memory they gave was stored in a new jar, and the stew became richer, deeper, more powerful. Now, when they ate, they didn't just taste humanity, they tasted unity. The human smiled for the first time in days. He no longer cooked alone. The stall no longer belonged to him, it belonged to all of them, but he felt it too. His own jars were running low. The memories left inside him were few, and once they were gone, so was he. He didn't say it out loud, but one girl, the quiet one with feathers for hair, saw it in his eyes. She stepped closer and whispered, "We'll carry you when the time comes." He nodded gently and returned to the pot. This time he stirred not with sadness, but with peace. And as the girls began to gather again, bowls in hand, hearts open, they knew they were eating something. More than food, they were eating the soul of a broken world being rebuilt. One spoon at a time, she had always watched him from a distance. Long before she ever took her first bite of his food, even back then, when she was just another starving stranger hiding in the ruins. Her eyes had found him, not the food, not the smell, not the warmth, but him. Her name was Lyra. Though no one had spoken it in years, she came from a royal bloodline on a lost planet. She had worn crowns, given orders, and sentenced people to death with just a nod. But now she was nothing. Just one of the many girls sitting in the dirt near his food stall. She didn't speak much, didn't fight for attention. She sat far back, watching him serve the others, hearing the laughter, smelling the kindness. And slowly, day after day, she began to burn inside. Not with jealousy, but with a strange hunger that had nothing to do with food. One night, when the others were asleep in the shadows of broken machines, she stayed awake. She waited until the fire at the stall burned low and the man was alone. He sat on the bench, head tilted toward the stars, as if speaking to someone long gone. She walked to him in silence, stopping only a few steps away. "Do you ever get lonely?" she asked quietly. The human turned, surprised but calm. "Sometimes," he answered, "but not tonight." She sat beside him, closer than any girl had before. "I don't want your food," she said. "I want something else." He didn't move, didn't look at her directly. And what would that be? She leaned closer, her eyes glowing faintly in the dim firelight. "You," she whispered. "I want you." He stayed quiet, the flames flickering in his calm eyes. "I am not something to be taken," he said softly, "only shared, like the rest." "I'm not like them," she said. "I've seen what power can do, and I want it again." He looked at her then, really looked. "What you want is not me," he said. "It's the feeling I give, the safety." She reached forward, her fingers brushing his arm. "I can give you memories," she said, "good ones, beautiful ones, and more. If you let me in." But he gently pulled away. "Don't offer pieces of yourself just to get more of me," he said. "That's not how healing works." She stood up quickly, her pride cracked, her heart heavier than she expected. "You feed everyone but me," she said coldly. "You give them pieces of your soul, but none to me." He looked down at the pot, then back at her. "I've been feeding you since the first time you sat near the stall," he said, "but you wanted the wrong flavor." She didn't return the next morning. The others noticed. but no one asked. Lyra had always been distant, like a shadow just outside the firelight. But 3 nights later, she returned angry, changed, and holding something dangerous. In her hand was a glowing Cuban old memory extractor. Black market, unstable. She slammed it on the counter and shouted, "Give me the truth." The other girls stood quickly, shocked and confused. "Take his memories, and the stall dies," one warned. But Laura was shaking now, her voice cracking. "I need to feel what he feels," she said. Just once, the human walked forward. Slow and unafraid, he placed a hand on the cube, pushed it gently toward her. "If you want to steal a memory, take this one," he said. "It's my first memory of losing someone I loved." She hesitated, then activated the device. Her body went stiff, eyes wide, breath caught in her throat, tears began to fall. And she sank to her knees. Inside her head, she saw a small child holding a dying mother's hand. She felt the fear, the sorrow, the helplessness. She felt what it meant to be human and broken. The device shut off with a quiet hum, and Laura collapsed. The others rushed to her, confused and scared, but the human stepped back and said, "Let her feel it." When she opened her eyes, everything was different. She didn't look proud anymore. She didn't speak like a queen, she whispered. "You've been feeding us pain." The man nodded. "Pain is part of truth," he said. "It helps the sweet parts mean something." From that day on, Laura changed. She no longer watched from far away. She cooked with him, served bowls to others, and when no one was looking, she cried by the fire, not from regret, but from finally feeling something real. And sometimes, when the wind was soft and the stars were clear, she sat next to the human again. Not for power, not for answers, but just to share silence with someone who understood what it meant to carry memories alone. The fire didn't light that morning, not because the wood was wet or the wind was too strong, but because the man didn't strike the match. He just sat there, staring at the empty pot like it held the end of a story. The girls noticed quickly. Their bowls stayed empty, their voices quiet. Even Laura stood still, her hands shaking as she clutched a wooden spoon she carved herself. Something was wrong, and they all felt it. The human looked tired, not in body, but in spirit. His skin had lost its glow, and his eyes seemed far away. When the moss-haired girl asked what was wrong, he gave her the smallest smile. "The jars are nearly empty," he whispered. "And so am I." A silence settled over the camp, heavier than before. They all knew what that meant. He had been giving them everything, piece by piece, memory by memory, and now there was nothing left to give. One by one, the girls came forward, placing items at his feet, not gifts, not trades, but offerings. A torn photo, a feather from a dead friend, a stone that once glowed in a palace. Each item was a piece of their past, their pain, their love. He looked at them with soft wonder. "You remember now," he said. "You all remember?" And they nodded. Not as warriors or outcasts, but as people. The human stood slowly and reached beneath the counter. From a small box, he pulled out the last jar. It was dim, barely glowing. "This one," he said, "is the last story I have left." They watched as he poured it gently into the pot. No spices, no roots. Just water and the memory of his final truth. The fire lit itself this time, as if the world understood it was time. The pot bubbled quietly, and the scent was unlike anything before, warm, sad, full of goodbye. He handed out the bowls himself, one by one, not in silence, but with soft words. "You're strong now," he told the girl with the fire-colored eyes. "Keep them laughing," he told the one with silver skin, to Laura. He gave the last spoon and whispered, "You made it." When they ate, no one cried. They just closed their eyes, and inside their hearts, they saw the boy he once was, alone in the ashes, holding a spoon and feeding ghosts he had waited for. Them for all of them to find him, and now that they had, he could rest. When the bowls were empty, the fire died out. The human lay down beside the stall, arms folded behind his head. He looked up at the sky and whispered, "I think. This is enough." The girls didn't try to stop him. They sat with him, surrounding him with warmth. No one moved, no one spoke, until the stars began to fade. And the morning light touched his face. His chest didn't rise again, but he was smiling, and in that quiet moment they all understood he hadn't died. He had simply finished his meal. Days later, they rebuilt the stall, not with wood or nails, but with memory. Each girl shared one memory from her own life. They bottled them, stored them, cooked with them. And when new travelers came, they were greeted not by one cook, but by many. The food was different now, full of wild stories and broken songs. But it still healed, still warmed, still brought tears, because they remembered the man who showed them what food could really be. They didn't hang his name on a sign. They didn't build a statue. They only told one story to every newcomer who asked who started it all. They said, once there was a man who gave away everything he had, and somehow he made the whole world feel full again.